Welcome to Equity Builds Expertise, the podcast. Because whether you teach it or build it, expertise grows where equity leads. I'm Shauna Pyatt Buckner, STEM educator, consultant, author, and the voice behind the Equity Builds Expertise framework. And after years of helping teachers, school leaders, engineers, and technical teams grow their people, I've learned something pretty simple. And that's that classrooms and companies really face some of the same challenges. And it's going to be the same solutions that change everything. So here, we're going to talk about what really builds expertise. We're talking about belonging, access, agency, clarity, communication, and those everyday decisions that actually shape how people think, learn, and collaborate. So if you're committed to growing your people, whether we're talking about students or staff, teachers or engineers, then this is the space for you. So pull up a chair, grab your notebook, and join me as we bridge the worlds between STEM education and STEM industry and build the expertise that truly lasts. This is Equity Builds Expertise, the podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to Equity Builds Expertise, the podcast, because whether you teach it or build it, expertise grows where equity leads. All right, so in our last episode, we talked about culture and the role that leadership plays in shaping it. Today, however, we're going to take that one step further because even when we care about people, we don't always know how to support them in building expertise. I'm joined today by Laila Plamondon, and this conversation breaks down the difference between leading and managing, and really what it looks like to coach great people to think. So let's get into it. All right, Laila, thank you so much. And I know you don't mind me calling you Lai, so I'm gonna call you Lai. Yes, thank you so much for joining me. And I've admired you for years and the work, especially the way that you have supported leaders. And we've worked together for so many years, but the way you support leaders, both through your clarity and your expectations, and through the human systems that you use to develop them. And I know that that's not easy because especially in data and IT, in tech world, things are always moving quickly. When a problem happens, people want it solved immediately. And you have found a way to basically marry urgency with care, with belonging, with an understanding that there is always a human involved in every single system, every single process, especially when it comes to customer service. And I am excited about our episode today and this opportunity to get into a little bit more about how you do that and what you think is the key to developing people in this very human way. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you so much, Shauna. It's such an honor. I'm so excited to be asked and especially to have this conversation with you. I could think of no one better to have it with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This podcast is called Equity Builds Expertise. And when you think about leadership expertise, what do you believe leaders most misunderstand about how it actually develops over time?
Hmm. The thing that I think most leaders misunderstand is that leadership and management are not the same
Mm,
thing.
mm,
They are different skill sets. And I had a bunch of calls late last year where I was sort of probing folks to understand what is your understanding of leadership skills? What are management skills? And actually they couldn't parse them apart. But for me, they're they're different skill sets and they're
mhm,
teachable and they're learnable. So for example, management skills are the skills of delegation, giving feedback,
mm,
receiving feedback, progress monitoring, running effective one-on-ones. And then as you lead a larger team, it's the skills of knowing how to hire, how to fire, how to move someone through a PIP or a performance plan. And so that's management. That's the accountability
mm,
work, holding folks
mhm,
accountable to also the policies of your company. That's different than coaching work.
mhm.
Coaching skills are understanding how to move someone from where they are to where you need them to be. And then as you manage a bigger team, how to coach an entire team to be self-sufficient. But that's different also than leadership work. Leadership work is the strategic thinking. It's the insight and making the big bets about what the goals of the team should be or of the organization should be and how to move the entire team forward. And the trick is that you can be good at that strategic thinking and at leadership and not have management skills. And I started to realize in these calls and as I've been working through Rare Bird that actually people don't get trained on management skills. They can't name them. And so also they don't
Mm,
necessarily know whether they have them or not. But I
yes.
truly believe to be a good leader, you need management skills, coaching skills, and leadership skills.
Do you think most business programs train people in any of those? How does one develop those skills?
If you look at the research, it's a research paper by Wharton, about 60% of managers received zero management training before they got put into the management role. And then
Mm,
about 40% of first-time managers stop managing within the first 1 to 2 years. So I think
wow.
there's something culturally
Yeah.
where we are not naming those skills and training managers, and we're not sort of putting the energy and effort there. On a much broader scale. I
Mm-hmm,
think some of this
mm-hmm.
training used to happen pre-COVID, but it's really not happening as much even in more recent years. So that's why I'm so interested in it. It is a fascinating management
Yeah.
training gap.
Yeah. So you're saying though that people stop managing. So then does that mean that they rely on the other two components like leadership? What happens when they stop managing and what is the impact of that?
Yeah, I think I can speak from the technical world since I work in IT. There is the opportunity to be an independent contributor where you're
Mm-hmm,
an engineer or you're coding or you're doing something
mm-hmm,
more technical. And if you
mm-hmm,
don't want to manage, I think that is a route that you could seek.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I think when folks are choosing not to manage, I suspect it's because they haven't had the option to be trained as opposed to, and to really test it out,
mm-hmm,
as opposed to saying that they don't want to be managers. I think that's a very
mm.
different thing.
Is it possible that they may already be a manager and then stop? So they may have the title or the positionality, but then stop doing the managing or stop exercising those skills that are necessary for managing.
Or worse, that they're not performing, they're not getting their team to perform, and so they're
Yeah,
demoted to a
yeah,
non-manager role. Yes, I think
got
all
it,
of those.
got
And
it.
we've certainly had on our team, on data and IT, folks
Mhm.
that have come and said, I'm not sure that I want to be a manager, but we've
Mm,
seen some skills or something that tells us that they could do it. And we've encouraged
Mm.
them to try or given them small at bats. And then the coaching and the training within those small at bats and had folks come around and say, well, actually, I can do this. I
I
do
love
enjoy
that.
it.
I
In
love
my
that.
last organization, I didn't think I could, but maybe this is something that truly is within my ability range. It's not that I can't do it. I can choose whether or not I want to do
I love that. I love that. I want to focus a little bit more on this whole idea of um, leaders not necessarily having the skills. When we have a leader in a position where they're managing or they've been hired to manage a team,
it.
but
Hmm.
then they may be lacking either the coaching or the managing or the leadership skills, as you say, that those it's like the trifecta that's needed
Hmm.
to be impactful.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that you believe leaders or people in that position, and I should probably stop using the word leader now that we know that that's one part of the role of
Hmm.
being a leader.
Hmm.
What do leaders need to unlearn before they can start that growth?
Mm. What do leaders need to unlearn
Before
before
they
they
can
can
start to,
start the
yeah,
growth of becoming a manager?
of becoming, yeah, the manager that is most impactful, that has all three of those skills. What are the things that you're noticing are some unlearnings that need to happen?
This is such a good question. I've had some managers go through some of my training and coaching
Hmm.
who were what we would consider seasoned managers. Maybe they've managed for 10 or more years.
Hmm.
And and the way that I knew that I was onto something is the feedback from them was that
Mm.
the training was just as useful as new managers. So they were still learning something even though they'd been
Love
managing
that.
for about a decade.
Hmm.
And what was interesting is this idea that because I'm the manager, and in order to feel like I deserve the power of being a manager,
Mm.
I need to know everything. I need to have all the answers. And that meant the technical expertise, but also the expertise of how to do change management, how to run projects, the sort of softer skills, stakeholder management. And so I've seen in these people sometimes is that the the what I would say are basic skills, although I realize they're not basic in our culture necessarily. The basic skills of knowing how to receive feedback and seeing that as a skill of receiving feedback, or how to give feedback in a way that's kind and has radical candor built into it. Those were the foundational building blocks that they had sort of skipped over.
Mm.
And then the second piece is that in their effort to show that they deserve to be a manager, when a direct report would ask a question, they would answer it.
Mm. Hmm.
And what does that do? That shows your direct report that you know technically what the answer is. So you've proven now that you have the technical ability or the answers to what they're looking for,
Hmm.
but it doesn't teach your direct report how to do this work in the future.
Hmm.
And so when
Wow.
we talk about mindset shifts, I've talked
Yes.
about now that you have the answer, put that answer in your back pocket. Like just hold on to it. You
Yeah.
don't need to
Yeah.
share it immediately. We'll get
Yeah.
there.
Wow.
Instead, what are the questions that you are going to ask your direct report to see where they are in their thinking?
Yes.
And how do you pull the answers out of them? Because in that conversation where you're getting them to struggle, hopefully productively struggle,
Hmm.
that's going to lock in the learnings.
That's
That's
right.
going to allow you to see
That's
where
right.
they are and what the gap is that you need to close. And maybe their answer is better than what you had, then great.
Yeah.
You've all
Yeah.
learned something.
Yes. Yes.
But if it's not quite your answer, then you still have your back pocket. You still
That's
have
right.
the work that you've done and you can get there quickly if you need to. but hold those answers as your back pocket answers rather than thinking just because you're the manager, you need to have all the answers.
I love that. I love that. In fact, like everything that you're saying is a parallel to what we talk about in the classroom as well, right?
This
We
is
want
because I read the book that Uncommon published, and then I was like, how does this apply?
yes, yes, absolutely. But that is the premise of really what I totally believe in is that when we talk about building expertise, it's not a way to build expertise in education. It is a way to build expertise in individuals.
And
And,
adults. It's
and
not just
that's right.
kids, it's adults. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. We want students to be doing the heavy lifting, the heavy
Hmm.
thinking. And I've seen time and time again when I would go and observe classes, right, where the teacher asks questions, but then answers them themselves. Or they'll do a think aloud and say, I'm going to show you what I'm thinking, but then they just talk through everything that they just thought through as opposed to teaching students what are the questions that I'm asking myself to get from
Hmm.
one step to the next. That was some feedback that I had to give when even as adults, we were both on that leadership team and we would do think alouds. And it's like it's not a real impactful think aloud unless you can help the audience, the viewers know how to get from step one to step two. And it's not you telling them, it's you showing them the questions you're thinking, the questions that your brain is processing in order to get you there. In your experience, where do leaders most often create barriers unintentionally and not from lack of care, but from habits, assumptions, or even some inherited systems?
Hmm. I have two for you. Is that okay?
We
Here's
Why
my
this is
first
this is
one.
us. This is our interview. We do what we want here.
The first that I found so fascinating in talking to professionals, especially in the business and tech world, is the perception that I need to show that I am the one who keeps everything working here. That you
Mm,
can't fire me because I'm the glue, I'm the system, I own everything. And one, and that's just the opposite of the way that I've always naturally operated.
mhm,
My operating principle has been if I can teach everyone around me my job, that is my opportunity to do the next thing and move up. And
yes.
I'm not like looking back down only to pull up with me. I'm linking arms with everyone along the way. And I just have a much different perspective on like building the team to do the work together because I'm not interested in doing it alone. And that when I can teach my skills, that actually frees me up to do the next thing. So that's number one. And then number two, you talked about habits. And I love, love, love this idea of what are the habits. And I think actually
Mhm,
habits as a leader can, in some ways, then become the unintentional barrier.
mm,
So I know we've both read the James Clear book,
mhm.
and probably you love this quote as much as I do that we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And I suspect in reading this, a lot of leaders have done thinking about what are the habits that they have as individuals.
Mhm, mhm.
But I don't think leaders necessarily think about the habits that they give their team to
Ooh.
set the team up. And
Mhm.
then, equally important, what are the ways in which you hold your team accountable to those habits?
Yeah.
So, I'll give you a couple of examples. When I'm talking about team habits, I'm talking about the weekly newsletter that goes
Mm,
out,
mhm,
and you expect everyone to read that, or the daily stand up or
mm.
the monthly data meeting where you're looking at data together. Those are examples of habits. So
What
let's
is
take the
the weekly stand up? I'm sorry.
a week a daily stand up is in technology and agile teams where
Yes.
you come together and everyone shares what got done, what's coming, what
Got
roadblocks do you
it.
have. And it's called a
Got it.
stand up because it's supposed to be real fast. Everyone's literally standing. And you're just going through to make sure that you're unblocking any issues or potential issues as they come.
Is that something that typically happens with every team? Is this a daily check-in or weekly?
I think it's supposed to be a daily, especially in agile teams. On data and IT, we do usually twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned fires and when things go wrong, and there's
Mm-hmm.
certainly situations where we're meeting once or even
Mm.
twice a day because
Yeah.
work is just moving that fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, no, not at all. So let's take the example. Let's take a simple example of a newsletter. Let's say
Okay.
that you are sending a weekly internal newsletter, and your expectation is that your team is going to not only read this letter, but digest the action steps and then act on it. But if you look at research, only 40% of folks actually read internal newsletters, 40 to 50%, depending on where you look.
Yep.
So now you could be upset as a leader that you've told your team they've got to read this newsletter and they're not. But from my perspective, that's just human nature
Mm-hmm.
because they don't see your leader attention on that newsletter. And where the leader's attention goes, the team's attention will follow. So it's not enough to just have the newsletter. You've got to
Mm-hmm.
hold the team accountable to that newsletter by showing you're paying attention. And you can do that in really light touch and even fun ways. For example, you could do a pop quiz at the beginning of a weekly meeting to make sure that
Oh,
people have digested the letter.
yeah.
And it could be a joke, it could be fun, but the fact that you're asking that question, your team's going to read that darn newsletter because they don't want to be called out, right?
Right. Right.
Or you could have a progress monitor and expect managers to ask about certain items that have shown up in the newsletter. The fact that the manager's asking means everyone's going to read that newsletter.
That's right.
So it's the pairing of these habits for the team, but then the accountability on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
That is management. Okay.
Mm.
What is a leader role? The leader is making strategic decisions about the 4 to 5 habit sets that are most
Mm.
important for their team. That's based on what the team needs to accomplish or the personality of the team. So let's talk about a technical example since we're talking about
Yeah, let's
technical
do it.
expertise.
Mm-hmm.
On my support teams, I expect them to know a little bit about everything because they are my on the ground folks. They're seeing tickets, they know my users best, they see the trends before anyone else does. So I need them to read those newsletters and really digest it because I need them to understand the lay of the land and the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's different than my engineers. I
Mm.
want engineers to be deeply focused on their projects. I actually don't want them to engage deeply in this entire world unless it's work that's directly in front of them because they're my deeper thinkers. And so the
Mm-hmm.
habit that I have of pop quiz on a newsletter for IT support, that's not the same habit that I would set for my deep thinkers on engineering. As a leader, I'm making strategic decisions about what habit sets are most important and then holding those habits for
I
those
love it.
teams.
I love it. That's differentiation. Right?
Hmm.
That is differentiation in the classroom. You
Hmm.
haven't
Hmm.
changed the bar. What you did is set the right bar, right? For the task, for the skill, for what is needed for that job function. And so that's what we should be doing for that unit. What is the skill? What is needed? What is the absolute bottom line for everyone? And then what is going beyond? What is going beyond? What is going beyond? But you never lower the bar. That bottom
Hmm.
line is like the ceiling for
Okay.
everyone. Now it's what is needed. What do they need to focus on? Who are my students with disabilities? Who are my students who are already well advanced this beyond this bar? What is it that they need to
Yeah.
truly be successful? Yeah. Can you share an example, a story, a moment where a simple mind shift, something that just might have seemed small, subtle, where it led to a meaningful change in how a
Hmm.
leader may have learned how to function and lead their team?
Hmm. Hmm. I think another mindset shift, especially when I think about, for example, project managers that I've
Mm.
had, is around instead of thinking of yourself as the expert, how do you think of yourself as the person who is forging partnerships?
Oh.
And when I say partnerships, I mean deep partnerships between yourself as a project manager, your technical experts, maybe vendors, and your stakeholders? What are the ways in which you're creating shared language about what work needs to happen? How do you make sure everyone is on the same page about a goal and the value that they hope to see? How do you translate that goal between really technical folks and maybe
Mm,
folks that are not at all technical, maybe instructional leaders?
yes.
And then what are in Agile, we call them ceremonies, and I love that word because
Mm,
it means what are the habits? What are the working protocols and mindsets that you have as a team as you're going from where we are now to the value that we see in our future?
oh, wow.
All of that work is partnership work, and you don't
Hmm.
have to have all the answers to do that work. You don't have to have necessarily even the technical expertise to do that work, but you have to have a deep mindset of partnership. And so that shift for project managers to partnership, I think, can make a big difference.
Wow. What makes a leader ready for that shift?
Mm, that's such an interesting question, Shauna.
Hmm.
I don't think that there's a minimum bar or a prerequisite to being ready.
Mm,
And I say that because I suspect if you called an analyst or a lead on IT support, they would approach the problem with that same partnership mindset.
nice.
What stretches is the scope or the risk or the complexity of the
Mm,
work that they're taking on.
hmm.
So, whereas our project managers, who are pretty high level, are working with VIP stakeholders, maybe
Hmm.
value that sounds more like a vision than a goal, than a technical goal. They might have multiple people that they're partnering with. There
Hmm.
might be technical complexity or deep risk, but it's the project that's getting harder, the stakeholder management that's getting harder.
Yeah,
I think at any point you can shift to a partnership mentality.
I love it. So if this kind of shift can happen at any point,
Hmm.
um, how do they get time to pause? And let me back up because I started with talking at the top of the whole episode. We talked about how you work in urgency mode, urgency world. I mean, things are happening. I am telling you, if my computer goes down, I want it fixed yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, right? And I
And you
want
deserve to have it fixed yesterday
right.
too.
And
Yeah.
if I see that little swirly thing at the top and it takes even a fraction of a second longer than I'm used to, it's like something's going on. I'm clicking out of it. I'm clicking, 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 right? So you often help leaders to slow down. And you're doing this in an environment that is a constantly rewarding speed. And that is not exclusive to tech world, right? Because
Hmm.
we do that too with our time tests and then giving zeros for things that just didn't get completed when that's actually not uh, uh, um, any indication of students' knowledge or true understanding. So, and that's a whole other episode on
Hmm.
equitable
Hmm.
grading, right?
Hmm.
But the reality is we reward speed, and
Hmm.
you have found a way to support leaders in making space for reflection without feeling that they're falling behind. And I just want to know how, first of all, how do you get them to that space where they're open to that?
This is such a good question and a good reflection point for myself. I would suspect if you asked anyone I manage, they would tell you that it's not a choice.
Hmm, hmm.
That
Yeah.
because I value the coaching so much, and I value the coaching because I want to set up self-sufficient teams. I want
Hmm.
folks to be
Hmm.
able to get better and have opportunities that are bigger.
Hmm.
But it's not a choice in our check-ins to slow down. If I'm
Mm.
seeing an area of growth or an opportunity for growth, that we're taking that opportunity as it comes. And at the end of the day, the truth is when the opportunity is right there, that's when the learning happens anyways. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you can't make up those. You can have a
Mm,
goal and you can set projects for a goal, but sometimes when the opportunity is right there,
hmm.
grabbing it gives you the best learning and the
Yeah.
most
Yeah. Yeah.
productive struggle anyways.
Hmm.
And so I think a lot of it happens in our one-on-ones, but I think that there's maybe an assumption here that it takes a lot of time.
Hmm.
And this is something that I'd actually like to pressure test. And I have in our trainings, we test this idea about how much time does it actually take you to coach? I think it's like 5 or 10 minutes,
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
We think it takes a lot of time, but 15 minutes in an hour-long check-in on coaching that is going to improve someone's skill set is totally worth it.
Hmm.
I think the
Hmm.
trick is that I'm willing to invest those 15 minutes or to prep for that check-in so it only takes 15 minutes. But
Hmm.
truly, coaching doesn't have to take a lot of time.
So, I love that. I love that because I totally agree with you. And it's something that I think in just our leadership and coaching of teachers,
Hmm.
that if I were to look at where I think some principals do make mistakes, it's not always recognizing the moment to be a coach and the moment
Mm.
to just give direct feedback.
Hmm.
And so it's figuring out that little space. What might that sound like? What would be the difference between that? So if
Hmm.
you gave me a scenario of you coaching, a coach would ask or a coach would do what versus someone who's not really
Just who's
executing.
just giving
Yeah.
the feedback.
Yeah.
Well, let me share my definition of feedback first to make sure we're aligned on what feedback is.
Yeah.
My definition of feedback is the conversation that you have when you want someone to do something differently or
Hmm.
to keep doing what they are currently doing.
Mm.
You want someone to
Yes.
do something differently, it's growth
Hmm.
feedback, or to
Hmm.
keep doing what they're already doing.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, what it looks like is the feedback step is the first step, and then the coaching step is so now that we know what we want you to do differently, what are the
Hmm.
ways in which you could do it differently? I'm going to coach you on the ways to do it differently.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes coaching could look like I'll just give an example of someone asking a question and not knowing how to answer the question. So there's no feedback necessarily there. It could be,
Hmm.
here's this huge change that's going to affect our entire organization. How do I communicate this change?
Mm.
If a direct report at my level of senior director, so I'm
Yeah.
managing directors and senior managers, if they came to me and said, how do I manage this change? I would never answer that question. I would never answer that
Ah.
question.
So tell me, how would you respond?
I would say, well, let's start thinking about it. Do you have a stakeholder map already, or would you like to create one together? Okay, let's think about who are all the people that are impacted by this
Yeah.
change. We'll make a list. And I'll literally type while they're doing the talking, right? They're doing the thinking. I'm taking notes. Okay, now that we know who's impacted by this change, what do you think they care about? How are they going to be impacted? Write that down. Okay, now we know who the people are. Let's think about the communication streams. What do you know about the communication channels that we have to these different people? I'm writing this down. Okay, now
Mm.
let's draft the first communication. What do you think the main message is that we need to say? Yeah, you're right. Or no, I disagree. It could be slightly different. And then
So
I pause and I
are
say,
you
okay,
coaching at this moment?
I'm coaching because the key is you asked me how you should communicate.
Yeah.
What do you realize about the process that we just went through? In the future, how much of this could you do and bring me instead of us doing together? Okay,
Mm.
now next time you're going to bring me your recommendation. That's the coaching. Done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Where it's like it didn't start with feedback necessarily, but
No.
I coached them through the question instead of answering it.
And what I'm noticing is also the talk time
Mm-hmm.
being very different from what I'm imagining a feedback meeting would look
Mm-hmm.
like, right? Feedback, I am telling you the things that according to your definition, that I want you to keep doing, or the things that I need you to change and the why. So I'm doing a lot more talking. In the
Hmm.
coaching scenario, it seemed as if you were leading with questions.
So the method that we train for giving feedback is called situation behavior impact, or SBI.
Mm,
And actually, what I love about that framework is that it keeps talk time. The goal is about 50-50, even for feedback conversation.
okay.
The reason is that, well, I can just give you the framework real quick. So when you're setting up the situation, you want to give your direct report a moment to put themselves in the mindset of what happened and where they were. So you might ask a question about, I noticed that XYZ happened. Can you tell me what happened right before that event?
Mm,
And then you name the behavior that you see, but you might ask at that point, was there anything else that I'm not aware of? Can you explain the
mm,
gap to me and have them repeat it back to you?
yeah,
And then you might say, we both agree that it didn't land well.
yeah.
What do you think the impact was of the fact that it didn't land well?
Hmm.
And then pressure test, do you agree on the impact or not? That entire
Why is that
feedback con
important? Why is that important?
Ooh. If you are not in agreement with your direct report about the impact of
Mm,
feedback,
hmm.
the motivation to change will not exist.
Mm,
Then you are in a command scenario where you're telling your person what they must do, and sometimes that's necessary.
yeah.
But if you can agree on the impact and agree on the scale of the impact, you are much more likely to land on an action step or a shift that matches that impact
Hmm.
and both be motivated to make that shift.
Wow. So then, as a leader, do I need to prepare for this meeting? I mean, I don't know. How do you get the person to a point where you actually agree on the impact? It may require some extra work there. I don't know if I
Yeah.
could go in cold to a
Yeah.
meeting like that.
I so this is the other thing that we test in the training, which is we have folks prepare feedback scripts and we give
Mm,
them 5 minutes to do it and then we force them to practice. And they're basically there in 5 minutes.
yeah,
Obviously, there are feedback conversations that require much more practice because it's really intense, but a lot of these conversations, it's 5 minutes of practice. And the better you get at it, I mean, I probably don't prepare as much as I should, but I also know these frameworks and the way to use them like the back of my hand. And so I'm really just
yeah,
going in with one or two things and I can have the conversation because it's a flexible framework that's based on a conversation. So, yes, you do need to prepare, you need to learn, but I think my point again is that you can learn the skill set and the frameworks and apply it so broadly,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it makes all the difference.
yeah. And it reminds me of, I know some of the people you've managed for so many years, and after you've managed them in this way, what's the end result?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in so many situations of managing people, those people becoming my peers,
Yeah.
the thing I'm most proud of, and then
Yes.
managing them again, and then having them become my peers again. But the thing that I think has the most impact when you're giving feedback and coaching from this intention of, I want to share everything I know, and I
Mm,
want to coach you to be the best version of who you can be,
hmm.
is you have so much trust. So much trust.
Yes,
Because my
yes.
team, I'm sure, knows without a doubt if I have feedback, I'm giving it.
Yeah,
There's no question about what I'm thinking
yeah.
because I'm sharing what I'm thinking in a kind way and hopefully in a coaching way, but they're not nervous that I have feedback that I'm not giving. And then once you go through some of these conversations and you're able to accept feedback,
Yeah.
I think you end up with a lot of trust on your team.
Ah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you were looking forward to sharing or you would love to share?
I love this idea for your podcast that you have. Um, and I wanted to share, I don't actually even know if you know this. I was a psych major at Smith College, and I never studied abnormal psych, even though that was the most popular class. I always studied belonging and identity development.
Yes.
And so I came into tech because I learned once I started working that I loved technology, but I'm
Mm,
bringing another science background, which is the science of identity development and
yes.
psychology.
Yes.
And so as I'm leading teams, even though they're technology teams and it requires such technical
Mm-hmm.
expertise, the thing that I'm thinking about is who are the people in front of me? How do brains work? What does
Mm-hmm.
motivation look like? How do
Mm-hmm.
we keep an individual motivated, a team motivated, a organization motivated?
Yes.
Those are the questions that I'm truly engaged in, even though it's within the technology field. And I think that something that leaders, the best leaders do, is they are crystal clear about who belongs on their team.
Mm.
And by that, I mean, what are the mindsets
Yes.
of those people? What are the protocols? Are they a speed is everything type of team, or are they a slow,
Mm.
um, oh, I'm gonna lose it now. Are they a slow is smooth and smooth is fast kind of team? Those are very different sort of ways
Yeah.
of operating. But the
Yeah.
best leaders know what the identity of the team is,
Mm-hmm.
and they build on that. And that's my hope in what I'm doing. Rare Bird comes from that management coaching that I've done at Uncommon.
Yeah.
And the moment in one of these sessions where I had someone in tears and I was so nervous to say, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I'm just realizing that I'm not a bad coach. It's just that no one ever taught me how to coach. No one ever taught me how to manage." And
Yeah.
so the goal of Rare Bird is to close that management gap,
Yes.
but through training, because I believe that when you train a team on
Mm-hmm.
management, then you get shared language, you
Yes.
get shared feedback that goes up, down, and sideways. You get the ability for the team to hold themselves
Mm-hmm.
accountable and manage each
Mm-hmm.
other because you have that training across the board. So, Rare Bird Coach is really about that management training gap and how we close it to have better, self sufficient, more effective teams. The leadership belief that would want people to let go of is the born leader.
And what would you replace it with?
I would replace it with leadership as a skill, and there's so many ways to lead.
Mm-hmm.
Examples of that are um, my boss is very strong in the way that she's able to command.
Mm-hmm.
And you want her, when the world is falling apart, you want her to be leading because she, based on her technical experience and
Mm-hmm.
expertise,
Mm-hmm.
and the way she leads a room, she can tell who needs to do what in what order to make sure that we fix it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Her style is so different than my style. I'm much more like a sports coach. I will
Mm-hmm.
rarely tell my team what to do. I would
Mm-hmm.
much rather they tell me what they're going to do, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
stand on the sidelines. I'll make the call if I have to, but
Mm-hmm.
my goal is for the team to operate
Yeah.
independently.
Yeah.
And we both have sort of louder, more charismatic in front of the room styles, but we have folks on the team that are quiet.
Mm-hmm.
They're so knowledgeable, so nuanced. When
Mm-hmm.
they speak, everyone listens and listens closely.
Yeah.
And I think about them like the sage leaders. Everyone goes to them, but they go quietly and they get so much from speaking to the sage.
Yeah.
And that's different than the orchestra leader who maybe never says anything, but
That's right.
they are behind the scenes making sure the right people are moving at the right time and the work is happening. And you might never see them, but
Yeah.
they're the ones behind the scenes. And all of those different types of leaders are leaders. They are effective in their own way.
That's right.
And so much of what I do is hoping to see people for who they are and teach them the
Yeah,
skills so that they can be
that's right.
more authentically the leaders that they are with the right skill set, as opposed to making them a certain type of leader or a certain type of
Yes.
manager.
Yes. I love that. And that's one of the reasons why your team, your data and IT team, is one of my favorite teams. Not only to work with, but because the individuals are such individuals.
Hmm.
And you and your manager have done a wonderful job of making space for every individual to be seen and still be super effective in what they do as individuals. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on live, that I wanted people to know more about rare birds, simply because that, as you said, is something that can be taught. I've seen, because I was there from a while ago when you and your manager were still trying to figure it out, right? You were like,
Uh-huh.
okay, we've got to do something differently.
Hmm.
We've got to figure this out. And you just did. And then you systematized it in a way that as new managers on your team came, they were able to execute, learn how to lead with equity, empathy, expertise, but also with an understanding that you will always have people in front of you that deserve to show up as individuals, but they also can still meet the rigorous bar of excellence that you hold. And they can do it. You just need to figure out how to build that team to do that well. Thank you so much. And is there anything that you wanted to share about any current work that you're working on that is really exciting you right now? I'd love to give you that opportunity because you know I'm going to promote it in every way possible.
Yeah, yeah. I think the most exciting thing, I've been writing a lot of articles, and folks can find that on my
Where?
LinkedIn or
Yes.
on rarebirdcoach.com. So my LinkedIn
Okay.
or rarebirdcoach.com. I have a ton of free articles and I'm starting to share templates. Um,
Yes.
and that's just been really fun to see folks' reaction to it. I, for
Yes.
example, have a delegation template that's been shared,
Oh,
and I'm
yes.
starting to hear just the positive outcomes from being clear about delegation. So yeah,
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Lai. I
thank you, Shauna.
appreciate
It was
you.
so fun.
Yes. Wow, y'all, right? So, one of the biggest shifts in this conversation is actually this: giving answers feels efficient, but it does not build expertise. So, here's something I want you to sit with. Where might we be, or you might be stepping in too quickly instead of creating space for thinking? We're shifting into identity and confidence in STEM. I'll see you there.